So welcome back to the Young Professionals podcast, and today I'm really excited that we're joined by Ranjeev and Kerry from TLT, one of the UK's biggest national law firms. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So I guess to kick things off, it'd be great to make some introductions. So Kerry, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I am the Apprenticeship Manager at TLT. I've been at TLT for just over 18 months now, which is amazing. Bit of background, I actually went to university, did a law degree. I then went and got a sort of entry-level legal role and did litigation for 7 years, working up to being a sort of senior paralegal level. And then I fancied a bit of a career change. I call myself a career changer. I always loved training people. Whenever we got new starts, I was always the person to train them up. And so I went into working for a training provider in apprenticeships, actually. And I have been working in apprenticeships now for over 10 years, which is amazing.
Wow.
So I've seen all of the legal apprenticeships kind of grow. They didn't exist 10 years ago. So really, really great to have been on that journey. Interesting fact, TLT were my first client 10 years ago, and here I am. So it's like I've come full circle.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and I think it's such an exciting space to be in, you know, being there from the very beginning when the solicitor apprenticeships were kind of taking off. So it's great to have you here today.
Thank you.
And Ranjeev, it would be great to share the audience a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a partner at TLT. I sit in the real estate group. I've been with the firm for almost 3 years.
Okay.
I've been qualified for almost 25 years. I followed the direct route into the solicitor's profession, whereas previously the apprenticeship route wasn't available. And I spend most of my time doing real estate work, so buying, selling, financing properties.
Wow, incredible. And it's not very often we get a partner on the show, so it would be great to kind of talk to the students a little bit about your career journey, you know, becoming a partner at TLT, but also maybe all of the hoops and the journey that you went through to becoming a partner.
So there's the technical side. So the academic side, the route is fairly well developed. So essentially, I went to university, went to law school, and joined a law firm. I've worked at a Magic Circle firm. I spent 10 years with US law firms. Yeah. I've worked with national firms, and I'm with TLT. So I think I've seen the broad range of offering out there when it comes to law firm. And by and large, I think there's a real compelling case now for developing wider access to the profession, which is what we're helping to do as well. But generally speaking, I think the legal profession is very open now to people from various different backgrounds. Personally, I come from a northern town, so West Bromwich, and my journey in was a little bit different to others. There was the academic side, which was relatively straightforward, but then there was the social side, which was perhaps a little bit lacking when I was coming through.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, being in the law for such a long time and working at a variety of different firms, what sort of training did you do in terms of actually, you know, starting day one as a solicitor within a law firm?
So the training is progressive. So at day one I was a trainee, and that meant I spent 6 months in each of 4 areas. So I started in real estate, in property, I moved to litigation, then I did a corporate seat, and then I did a seat in finance as well. And by the time I qualified, I'd worked out exactly what I wanted to do. So the tasks that I was doing were relatively varied. So we started off with some very basic things, things that I developed from being at law school to some more complicated cases as well. Most of the interaction I had was internal, but often I got some client contact as well, which was gratifying because we were able to see the other side of the coin in terms of what the clients were looking for. Yeah,
no, and could you maybe share a little bit about the work that you actually do? So for example, like what is real estate law?
Yeah. So real estate is property, and property is either residential or it's commercial. And property transactions tend to be one of, say, 3 transactions. Investment, which is buying and selling. Developing, which is building from scratch or refurbishing or renovating. Or funding, so finding money to do the acquisition and to the development. Of course, properties are different, and so some can be relatively straightforward, for example, a block of flats or a house. Others can be very complicated, for example, hotels, student accommodation, and commercial properties, of course, as well.
Yeah.
But by and large, they are relatively locked in terms of asset classes and so on. And as you progress through the profession, you get to know a little bit more about how each asset class works.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned at the start that you were doing a rotation, so you went into a variety of different kind of areas. What was the real estate kind of draw for you in terms of pursuing that more formally?
Well, it's interesting actually, because I didn't particularly like real estate at law school. In fact, it was probably one of the subjects that I didn't quite enjoy as much as the others. But having started my training contract and working in practice, as it were, real estate became a lot more apparent in terms of how it all fits together.
Yeah.
And the practice of applying the law was very different to learning about the law at law school. And I think the other thing that really helped me was the people I was working with. So I was supervised by a partner, and we had a very good team around us as well. And I think most of the decision in terms of which area to qualify in was based on the team that I worked in and the clients that I worked with and the transactions I worked with as well, more than anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like such a fascinating area of law to get into. And I know that you mentioned at the start there's like different routes now within law, and maybe Kerry, you could come in and kind of share a little bit about the new solicitor apprenticeship route that's really taking off within firms such as TLT.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've always had a passion for alternative routes into law, and that stemmed from, I mentioned that I did a law degree, and I got that entry-level role into law, and I actually started studying my SILEX qualifications, so that's to become a chartered legal executive. So there have always been some alternative pathways, which is great. Moving into apprenticeships and seeing what an apprenticeship is and how that could really work for a young person who potentially university isn't a route for them for various reasons has just been incredible, because as Ranjeev says, we are, all law firms are really open to diversifying the profession, if that's what everybody wants. Yeah. And apprenticeships is really going to help with that. So obviously I saw the introduction of apprenticeship standards when they first became a thing, and to think that now we have over 800 apprenticeship standards is incredible. So there are really very few careers that there aren't apprenticeship opportunities for. So we started delivering the solicitor apprenticeship 2 years ago now. We had our first cohort start, and they are now just finishing year 2, which is just amazing, and they're all doing incredibly well. Last September, we brought in our first cohort of school leavers who I met earlier, and they have just absolutely impressed us so much. We knew that there would be some bridging the gap between school and coming to work for a commercial law firm, but honestly, that bridge has been smaller than I thought, in terms of they are well exceeding our expectations in terms of the work that they are doing and the impact they are having in the teams that they are, which is incredible. So the solicitor apprenticeship is growing in popularity, but just a bit of a high-level overview about what it is. It is a 6-year programme that allows somebody to come straight from their A-levels into a law firm. Right from day one, they are earning a really good wage. I know there's a lot of myths around apprenticeship salaries not being great, but actually the reality in law is they're pretty good. And they've got 6 years then where they will work towards usually getting a law degree. It's not a mandatory part of the qualification, but majority of the providers include a law degree. And then at the end of the 6 years, they qualify as a solicitor. So as part of that 6-year programme, they complete what's known as the solicitor qualifying exams. And then at the end, they become an associate. And the best thing about an apprenticeship is we would then help them qualify into TLT as an associate, because we're investing a huge amount over their 6 years. We really want to retain them at the end. And, you can look into NQ salaries, but that really puts people in a really great position for their future careers. Now, having worked in apprenticeships for a long time and been involved in a number of discussions, for me, it was important to consider a young person just finishing their A-levels and thinking about signing up to a 6-year apprenticeship. Having never worked in law before, we understand that work experience can be tricky to get for law firms. And so what we've done at TLT is embedded a 2-year paralegal apprenticeship as part of the initial 2 years. Now, in reality, the content that they would be learning during those 2 years is exactly the same as the content that they would be doing on the 6th year anyway. The only real additional component for our apprentices is that they do complete a paralegal endpoint assessment at the end of year 2. And the reason we do that is because then it allows for a step off. Yeah. If there's a reason that somebody, doesn't want to continue. We want to hopefully progress every single one of our apprentices, but then at least they come away with a qualification. And for some people, they might just think, actually, I'm really happy as a paralegal. I'm happy to step into a paralegal role, which again, we would support them with. Yeah. But the majority will go straight into year 3, like nothing's happened, yeah, and continue to work towards their degree, continue to work towards their solicitors qualifying exams, and then qualify with us. So even though we've only been doing it for 2 years, we do have a number of people that have arrived with exemptions. So we currently have an apprentice in cohort 1 who is about to step into year 5 this September. What's really exciting about our 6-year programme is that they do 12-month seat rotations from year 1. So they will go into seats across the business and develop a fair, amount of knowledge, skills and behaviours during that time. When they get to the final 2 years, they actually step into our trainee rotation. So that's more of our traditional qualification route. And I only use the word traditional in that that's the route that's been known to law firms for, the longest time. That's the way you qualified, Ranjeev. So they actually step into that trainee rotation. And at that point, they are on equivalent salary. They then complete 4 6-month rotations, which hopefully will be in areas that they want to potentially look to qualify into.
So very similar to the 4 rotations that you did when you first joined as a trainee.
Yes, that's right. I think there are some parallels, but then there are some key differences as well. And actually, if we take a step back, the basis of the process is really to allow people at different stages to enter the profession. They may be from different backgrounds, they may have particular challenges, they may have particular strengths, but to absolutely work on all of those and deliver them that qualification that they want.
No, and I really like the idea that a young person committing themselves for 6 years, it's quite a big thing, especially at 18. So actually having that system in place where they can do the 2-year paralegal and then they can roll off and continue being a paralegal, but there's also the opportunity for them to continue. I think it's a really nice way that you've structured it.
And we provide them with the full 6-year, they sign up to the 6-year contract, but it just, as I mentioned, allows them a step off. 6 years, a lot can happen, a lot can change, but we really hope that allows people to potentially deal with some of the barriers they might have or concerns around entering the legal profession.
Yeah, and really great insights. And I guess, Ranjeev, you're the London head for apprenticeships here. So why are apprenticeships important to you here in London?
Well, they're important to us for a number of reasons. Firstly, there is a pool of talent which is left untapped. And that pool of talent exists outside of the regular process for people entering the profession, which by regular I mean the old-fashioned way, applying for a training contract, working for 2 years as a trainee, and then qualifying. There are lots of skills and hotbeds of talent up and down the land, and I think it's incumbent on us to find where that is, and then to take advantage of it and allow people to excel and to effectively develop themselves at the same time as well. Yeah. So it's important for that reason. It's important for the individual to be able to exploit their own talent. It's important for us to have a strong pool of talent from a diverse range of sources. But also it's important when we're looking at outwardly to our clients and recognising what they want, how they look like, and what they would want us to represent as well. And I think those are the 3 key areas that drive us when we're looking at something like this.
No, absolutely. And I think it's important that you mentioned that how you perceive to your clients as well, taking on young talent and believing in kind of, I guess, the future for your firm at TLT. Yeah,
that's right. I think most of the requirements, let's say the softer requirements, remain the same. We are looking for dynamic, ambitious, progressive people from all sorts of areas, from all backgrounds, and people who are genuinely interested in the profession. And it's a long program, and there is a step up that we just mentioned. But actually, we want some people who are absolutely committed. I mean, beyond that, there is a lot that we can do with them. So, for example, the main concern that we hear from people from certain backgrounds is a lack of social capital. And social capital takes time to develop. Okay, and so this program actually is ideal for somebody who thinks they have they're lacking in social capital in some way or another, and whether it's just because of a lack of exposure to city life, law firm life, or because of any other reason. And I think that sort of gradual progression through the 6 years gives them all the tools that they need to be super confident when they qualify, in the sense that they know what they want, what they need, and they can execute the job properly.
No, absolutely. And I think, being a partner yourself, Ranjeev, and being the sponsor for apprentices in the business, it must be quite inspiring for the apprentices to see someone who's so passionate about apprenticeships. And I guess probably from the apprentice perspective, how do they get to partner? I mean, what even is a partner at a law firm?
Law firms are designed more or less along the same lines. So entry-level trainee, then we have an associate position. Thereafter, there could be a managing associate position or a senior associate position. In our firm, we have a managing associate position. We also have a legal director position. And all these are grades, essentially, that people will sort of pass through. And then we have partners who are essentially responsible for the business. Okay, so they are both responsible for clients and bringing work in and servicing those clients, but also looking inwardly, they're responsible for the teams and the staff that they manage as well. And as a collective, the partners represent the firm, and they are effectively in overall sense responsible for the firm as well.
No. And I guess you spoke about the role of a partner bringing in clients and kind of finding new business. What sort of skills do the apprentices learn on the apprenticeship program? I mean, there's networking, team working skills, but is there an element of them actually learning how to find new clients?
I think it's a really interesting question because I think it's something that trainees and apprentices could worry about during the programs that they're on. But what I've been hearing quite a lot recently, and obviously Ranjeev will be able to speak much better to this, is that sometimes when we talk about bringing in client work, you can often think, oh gosh, it's about going out and finding new clients. But actually a lot of our client work really happens quite naturally, would you say? And it's about those client relationships that you really nurture and will potentially bring in work in another area or another sector and working really collaboratively. But you'll be able to speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the process of growing a client base is very organic. It starts off small and then it develops. But there are some key ingredients, actually. I think insofar as young professionals and apprentices are concerned, I think EQ is arguably more important than IQ these days. So it's great to have a sterling set of exam results and so on. But actually, if you can't translate that into the ability to deal with people on an everyday basis, whether they're internal folk or external folk, things are going to be relatively limited. And actually, just being able to deal with clients at the very early stage, and by that what I mean is, perhaps make a phone call, perhaps send an email, perhaps attend an event and socialise. We're talking about starting from a very small base and then developing from there. After that, of course, there's the advice that's given to clients, and on the advisory side, you would want somebody more senior to be able to oversee and so on. And then the rest of it starts to fall in place from there. So there's always a gradual process. But I don't want to be too reductive about it, but you've got to be you've got to be a likable person to start with. It really helps to be a pleasant, well-mannered person to start with. And I think clients do then get more comfortable with picking up the phone and having a chat and giving work. We also have to bear in mind that within the client organisation, there will be juniors as well. So it may well be that from time to time it's juniors talking to juniors, seniors talking to seniors. Not always, but by and large that might be the case. And so anyone who's feeling relatively nervous about client exposure, may be comforted by the fact that actually at the beginning it's relatively small, it's quite supervised, and it may well be with people who are like-minded as well. So we don't throw people in the deep end. We actually help them develop along, and we had an event yesterday morning to which some of our younger associates turned up, and things develop from there as well. And I think it's incumbent on partners and seniors to be able to welcome youngsters into the group, into the fold, and to show them the ropes to the extent that they need to.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a really nice setup that you've got there, especially for the solicitor apprentices coming through the programme. I guess kind of finally what I wanted to talk about was a little bit about the recruitment process. So, you know, I know that a lot of young people might be a bit daunted about actually even making an application on a corporate website. So it would be great maybe, Kerry, if you could talk to us a little bit about how does someone apply for a solicitor apprenticeship and what is the typical recruitment process for that?
Yes, definitely. It is daunting, and there's no, way of getting past that. Entering the legal profession is tricky and it is competitive. What I would always say though is if it's something that you want, just keep believing in yourself and keep going for it. But the best way of setting yourself up for success is by signing up to, the events that young professionals run. We really see the best success for those that have been to an open evening or an insight day, who have some work experience, whether that's virtual or whether that is through an insight. Don't panic. We're not expecting a vast amount of legal experience. We have an application process which is via our website, and we open those up usually in autumn for a September start. So this autumn we will open for September next year. And not to overthink it really. There are some questions that we will ask you. I would always encourage applicants to really research the firm. We appreciate that they might be applying to a number of law firms, and that's fine. We would say that's sensible. However, when you do apply to TLT, for example, do make sure it's not a generic application and that they've really looked at TLT and sort of spoken about why they would like to join. And actually by coming and speaking to us at one of our events, it's the best way to learn about who we are and whether an applicant feels they are right for us. Our values are really important to us, and it's important that they want to join us for the right reasons as well. So once somebody gets through the application stage, they may well receive an invite to an assessment centre. They may receive a rejection, and that's important that we talk about that, because what I'm most pleased with in terms of our partners, so we have apprenticeship principals in all of our offices, is they all talk really honestly about the amount of rejection letters that they received. Most lawyers, most partners have received rejection letters, and that's okay. It is a part of becoming a lawyer. It is, as I said, competitive. What I would say if somebody did get a rejection, look at that feedback, take it on board, continue to go to the open evenings and think, maybe it's not a no, it's a not right now. If somebody gets an invite to an assessment centre, that's really exciting, also very daunting. Again, if they've been to an open evening or an insight previously, they've likely been to the building, and that can be a major overcome of a barrier for some people, even just being able to walk into a commercial law firm. So that hopefully reduces the nerves a little bit. Assessment centres typically comprise of something called a strengths-based interview, which can seem a bit strange. Again, we're not looking for a ton of work experience examples with our strengths-based interviews. The reason we went to strengths-based is because we just encourage young people to come with a bank of examples that demonstrates their skills. Some of the best interviews that I've seen have been people bringing examples of playing for a football team, dancing from a young age. What that demonstrates to us is teamwork, commitment. Some people that do, whether it's a dance exam, I can really tell because the way they handle their nerves is very different. The confidence sometimes outshines mine, and I'm the assessor. And typically there'll be a group exercise. Again, that might seem really daunting, but it's just to look at how they work as a group. So start to think, what sort of character am I? Can I sometimes be overbearing? Do I need to bear in mind that I need to bring in quieter people? If I'm quiet, might be a bit outside of my comfort zone, but what can I do to make sure I speak and get involved? Start to think about your personality type and how you might work as a group. And then usually there's a bit of a task where, you know, we ask them to, you know, maybe have a look at a bit of a day in the life of an apprentice and how they might cope with some tasks that they might face as an apprentice. So everything we do is trying to set them up for success. And I would just encourage them actually to, try and get as much practice as possible and not to be too daunted. As soon as they arrive, you know, they are met by, you know, people like Ranjeev and I, and we like to think we're really welcoming and try to ease the nerves. There's no real way to prepare for them, but it's really about them bringing their authentic self and just trying to relax as much as possible. And you know, and if they have any concerns, what I would say as well, don't be afraid to talk about any reasonable adjustments or accessibility needs that they have. Talk to the early careers team. We can work, you know, with any reasonable adjustments. We, again, would rather people felt comfortable coming and being themselves, and, you know, we are able to adapt.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really great information there, Kerry. And I think, you know, everyone at home who will be thinking about the process, I think you've really highlighted it well there. So thank you. And I guess, Ranjeev, finally, what is the top tip you can give the students to leave here today in terms of what you might be looking for in a future solicitor apprentice?
Top tip. So the top tip is understand what the role is. Understand what solicitors do, not in terms of the finer art of real estate law or finance law or banking, but broadly speaking, what do solicitors do on a day-to-day basis when they're at work? And so it's been called a number of things. So here's an insider perspective. There's something called juggling the big three when it comes to being a lawyer. And I think it applies to other professions as well. So juggling the big three means getting on with clients, getting on with colleagues, and being highly competent on the technical side. Okay, so if the applicant knows that actually these are the three things that lawyers are typically working on a day-to-day basis, then it's not beyond the realm of possibility for that person to then think about some examples in their lives where they've been a very good team player, where they've excelled on technical competence, a great essay, for example, that's been written, or where they've showed some great client service. And by that I mean it could be a weekend job at Sainsbury's, it could be working at the local charity store. So any real life examples that are given to us which in our minds fit some of the bigger building blocks that we're looking for, I think are going to be absolutely great. And the tip is use those examples and be authentic. And if I can say something from an assessor's perspective, because we've both done assessments, rehearse answers in the sense that you know, practice what you're generally trying to say rather than trying to answer a particular question. Okay, so rehearse issues and rehearse what, you know, broadly speaking, the themes that you want to get across, but don't practice certain answers for questions because those questions may not come up. And you really do want to be answering the question that's put to you rather than the one that you think you want to answer. Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent top few tips there, Ranjeev, and you know, thank you also, Kerry, for joining us on the podcast here today. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, and hopefully everyone at home has been a little bit more educated about what a career in law looks like, the solicitor apprenticeship programme, but more importantly, how they could join TLT in the future. So thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks, Dan.